Let's break it down straight from the hill to your hometown. No spin, no hype, just facts we find. AI's on the case, no truth left behind. Laws are written, deals are made. Who's got your back, who's throwing shade? We cut through the noise, decode the text, keeping it real. Congress in context, Congress in context, shining the light, breaking it down so you know what's right. Policies, votes, who's working for you? We bring the facts, the power is you.
Welcome to Congress in Context. Today we're doing a deep dive, looking closely at a recent edition of the Congressional Record. Basically, your inside look at what's happening on Capitol Hill.
Yeah, we're zeroing in on Saturday, May 17th, 2025. It covers the House proceedings and gives us a heads up on Senate activity, too, even though they weren't formally in session that day.
And our mission, really, is to unpack what went down, the key activities, any new bills, the procedures, just to give you a clearer picture of the legislative landscape and, what it might mean.
Exactly. Making sense of the official record.
Okay, so let's jump right into the House. Saturday morning, May 17th, they met pretty briefly, it seems, called to order by Mr. Begich as Speaker Pro Tempore.
Right, and that Speaker Pro Tempore designation, it's basically a temporary stand-in appointed by the Speaker, in this case Mike Johnson. It allows the House to conduct business.
Standard procedure, then.
Pretty much. Then you had the opening prayer, approval of the journal, that's the official record from the previous day. Got to get the formalities done.
Right, ticking the boxes. Then the Pledge of Allegiance, led by Mr. Begich. And then, something more substantial.
Oh.
A report on joint resolutions presented to the president.
Yes, this is interesting. Two of them, HJRS 61 and HJRS 60. One dealt with an EPA rule on rubber tire manufacturing emissions.
Okay.
And the other was about a National Park Service rule concerning motor vehicles in Glen Canyon.
And the key thing here is how they were presented, using Chapter 8 of Title 5 U.S. Code.
Exactly. That's the Congressional Review Act, the CRA. It's a mechanism, really, that lets Congress review and potentially overturn rules made by federal agencies.
So Congress saying, hold on, we don't agree with this regulation.
Precisely. It highlights that push and pull, the checks and balances between Congress and the executive branch agencies. The fact these went to the president means Congress voted to disapprove those specific rules.
A direct challenge to agency actions. Okay, so after that report, the House adjourned until Monday. Brief session. But those resolutions definitely signal something.
They do. Potential friction or at least significant policy disagreement.
All right, let's shift gears to committee reports. Looks like the Committee on Veterans Affairs was busy. 5 reports submitted.
Yeah, a real focus on veterans issues here. You had H.R. 217 aiming to make a pilot program permanent. Something about helping veterans with property improvements.
Okay, continuing existing support.
Then H.R. 2201, which is about improving the process for claims related to military sexual trauma, a very sensitive and important issue.
Absolutely. What else?
H.R. 658 deals with qualifications for marriage and family therapists in the VA system. So, focusing on mental health care standards. H.R. 1286 directs the VA secretary to look into assessing the forms used for benefit claims, trying to make the paperwork less burdensome, perhaps.
And streamlining things, maybe.
Seems like it. And finally, H.R. 1823 calls for reports on potential funding shortfalls at the VA, making sure the resources are there.
So, across the board, housing, healthcare administration, funding, a comprehensive look at veterans support.
It definitely shows the committee is actively working on multiple fronts for veterans.
Okay, let's move on to new legislation introduced that day. Public bills and resolutions. What caught your eye?
Well, first up, H.R. 3475 from Mr. Fitzpatrick. This one proposes a new first-time homebuyer tax credit and also a credit for building starter homes.
Tackling housing affordability. That could have a big economic impact. Sent to Ways and Means, naturally.
Right, because of the tax credits. Then there's H.R. 3476 from Mr. Kelly of Mississippi. This would establish a forest conservation easement program under the Department of Agriculture.
So shifting to conservation and land use policy makes sense it went to the Ag Committee.
Yep. And H.R. 3477, sponsored by Mr. Larson of Washington, this directs the Transportation Secretary to require some airlines to develop operational resiliency strategies.
Resiliency. So plans for handling disruptions, like weather or system outages.
Presumably. Given recent travel headaches, it seems like a response to that, and it went to the Transportation and Infrastructure Committee.
Logical fit. And the last public bill, H.R. 3478.
From Mr. McGuire. This one's interesting. It aims to limit penalties for destroying aircraft, so they only apply to manned aircraft.
So it could change how incidents involving drones or unmanned aircraft are treated legally.
That seems to be the implication. Updating laws for new technology. It was referred to both judiciary and transportation and infrastructure, which makes sense given the legal and aviation aspects.
A wide range of topics just in those 4 bills. We also saw a couple of House resolutions introduced. What's the story with those? They're different from bills, right?
Right. Resolutions express the sense of the House or handle procedural matters. They don't usually become law in the same way bills do. HRES 424 from Mrs. Bonamici supports the goals of National Honor Our LGBT Elders Day.
So more symbolic, raising awareness.
Exactly. It shows support for an idea or a group. The committee referrals, foreign affairs, and energy and commerce are a bit unique, but might relate to human rights internationally and domestic social issues.
Okay, and the other one?
HRES 425 from Mr. Morell. This supports designating May 16th as National Day of Light. Again, symbolic, likely highlighting science, technology, things like that, referred to the Science, Space, and Technology Committee.
So these resolutions add to the public conversation, even if they aren't creating binding law.
Precisely. They signal priorities and can build support for issues.
Now, something called constitutional authority statements was mentioned for each bill. Can you quickly unpack that?
Sure. It's fundamental. Every bill sponsor has to state which part of the Constitution gives Congress the power to make that specific law.
A check on power, essentially.
Yes. You often see references to Article 1, Section 8, the power to tax and spend, the necessary and proper clause allowing laws to execute other powers. For that conservation bill, they also cited the Commerce Clause. It's Congress showing its work, grounding legislation in constitutional authority.
Got it. A reminder of the underlying legal framework. We also saw members adding their names as co-sponsors to bills already introduced. What's the significance there?
Adding your name as a co-sponsor is basically a public endorsement. It signals support for the bill. The more co-sponsors generally, the more momentum a bill might have, showing broader backing within the House.
Strength in numbers.
Kind of, yeah. It can definitely help a bill's chances of moving forward.
And then discharge petitions. This sounds like a way to bypass something.
It is, essentially. A discharge petition is a procedure in the House. If a committee is sitting on a bill, refusing to report it out, members can sign a petition. If they get a majority of the House, 218 members, to sign it, the bill can be forced, or discharged, from the committee straight to the House floor for a vote.
So it's a way for the rank-and-file members to overrule a committee that's blocking something.
Exactly. It's a tool to counteract the committee gatekeeping power, though it requires significant support to succeed. We saw names being added to a couple for specific resolutions.
Interesting mechanism. Okay, The record also includes extensions of remarks.
Yeah.
What kind of things appear there? It's not debate on the floor, right?
No, it's like an appendix to the day's proceedings. Members can insert statements, tributes, explanations. We saw Representative Whitman give a personal explanation for missing votes. That's standard practice.
Just clarifying the record.
Right. But then you also had Representative Hernandez honoring Dominican authors. It connects Congress back to cultural recognition, things beyond just legislation.
Has a human element.
Definitely. And Representative Issa included remarks remembering Chairman Bo Mazzetti, recognizing his contributions to tribal sovereignty. So it captures tributes and acknowledgments of service, too.
So it's not all just dry procedure.
Not at all. It reflects a broader range of congressional activity and interest.
Okay, let's touch on the Senate. They weren't in session on Saturday, but the record mentioned their next steps.
Correct. It noted the Senate would meet again on Monday, May 19th. And the key item was resuming consideration of Charles Kushner's nomination to be ambassador to France and Monaco. Importantly, a cloture vote was scheduled.
Cloture vote. That's about ending debate, right?
Right.
Especially if there's a potential filibuster.
Exactly that. Senate rules allow for extended debate, which can be used to delay or block a vote. Invoking cloture requires a supermajority, usually 60 votes, to cut off debate and force a final vote on the nomination. Scheduling that vote means leadership wants to push the nomination through potentially lengthy debate.
A key procedural hurdle in the Senate.
Got it. Finally, let's look at committee meetings mentioned in the record. What was happening there?
Well, it reported on meetings from the previous day, Friday the 16th. The House Armed Services Subcommittee on Cyber, Information Technologies, and Innovation had a hearing on the Defense Department's cyber posture.
Cybersecurity, a constant concern.
Absolutely. And the House Budget Committee started a markup session. That's where they go through budget legislation line by line, debating and amending it, a critical part of the budget process.
And looking ahead to Sunday the 18th, more committee work scheduled.
Yes. The Budget Committee was set to continue its markup. The House Rules Committee had a hearing planned on 2 Senate Joint Resolutions, SJ-Res 13 and 31. These were also using the Congressional Review Act to disapprove agency rules. More CRA action. Which rules this time?
One related to a bank merger rule, the other to a Clean Air Act rule from the EPA. So again, Congress exercising that oversight function on regulations.
Okay.
And also, the House Veterans Affairs Subcommittee on Technology Modernization had a hearing scheduled about improving software licensing management at the VA.
Linking back to those VA bills we discussed earlier. Efficiency and administration.
Exactly. It shows how the work in subcommittees feeds into the broader committee concerns and potential legislation. Even when the main chambers are in session, the committees are often hard at work.
So, stepping back and looking at everything from this single day's congressional record, what does it tell us?
I think it really paints a picture of the sheer scope of what Congress deals with. You've got environmental rules, veterans' health, housing policy, transportation, conservation, even symbolic recognitions, all happening concurrently.
And you see the different gears of the legislative machine introducing bills, committee work, using specific tools like the CRA or discharge petitions, Senate nominations moving forward.
Absolutely. It shows the process. And it highlights the ongoing interaction, sometimes tension, between Congress and the executive agencies through that oversight function.
It really emphasizes that the congressional record, while formal, is a direct window into government priorities and actions. For you, the listener, understanding this stuff gives you real insight.
It does. It might seem dense, but if you want to know what issues are getting attention, what arguments are being made, or how your own representative is engaging, the record is a primary source. It's available online, usually through the government publishing office.
You can track bills you care about, see committee actions, read statements. It allows for a much deeper level of engagement than just headlines.
Definitely. So, reflecting on the snapshot, what really stood out to you? Does seeing this level of detail change how you think about Congress's day-to-day work?
It raises questions, for sure, about efficiency, about priorities, about how these seemingly small procedural steps eventually lead to major policy outcomes. It's just one day, a glimpse, but there's always so much more happening beneath the surface.